Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be diving into
Clear thinking.
clear thinking and decision making. And you guys have sent in some excerpts from clearthinking.pdf,
Yes.
which is all about making better decisions
Right.
by recognizing and managing these mental defaults.
That's right.
And I'm really excited to unpack all this with you.
Yeah, I think it's a book that really challenges a lot of our assumptions about how we think
Yeah.
and how we make decisions.
Yeah.
In fact, it argues that much of what we consider thinking
Uh-huh.
is actually just reacting on autopilot.
Yeah, I've definitely been there.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like our brains are just wired to take the path of least resistance, even if it's not the best path
Right.
in the
It
long
is
run.
efficient,
Yeah.
but not always effective.
Exactly.
Yeah, the book refers to these automatic reactions as our mental defaults,
Okay.
and they can often lead us astray,
That's great.
especially in complex or high-stakes situations.
So how do we recognize when these defaults are like taking over?
Yeah.
Like, does the book give us any clues?
It does.
Okay.
Yeah, it outlines several common thinking defaults
Okay.
that we all fall prey to. For example, there's the emotion default.
Okay.
So think about a time when you made a decision in the heat of the moment,
Oh, yeah.
driven by anger,
Mm-hmm.
fear, or even excitement.
Yeah.
Maybe you said something you regretted or made a purchase you couldn't really afford.
Oh, I think we've all been there. The book actually uses Sonny Corleone
Oh, yeah.
from The Godfather.
Perfect example.
Of a
Yeah.
prime example of the emotion default.
That's right. Sonny was impulsive,
Yeah.
reactive,
Mm-hmm.
let his emotions dictate his actions.
Totally.
And as we all know, that didn't end well for him.
Definitely a cautionary tale.
Yes.
It makes you realize how important it is to just like pause
Yeah,
and consider the consequences before letting our emotions take the wheel.
absolutely.
Speaking of making decisions we regret, I'm curious about the ego default.
Okay.
What's that all about?
The ego default is all about protecting our self-image
Okay.
at all costs,
Mm-hmm.
even if it means making decisions that aren't in our best interest.
Okay.
The book shares the story of an executive who lost his job
Wow.
because his ego wouldn't allow him to accept any critical feedback.
Oh, wow.
He was so focused on appearing successful
Yeah.
that he missed crucial warning signs.
It's amazing how often our egos can just like sabotage our own success. It's like we'd rather cling to this false image of ourselves
Right.
than face the discomfort of admitting we were wrong.
It's a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this default can show up in subtle ways too. You know, maybe you've avoided asking for help because you didn't want to appear incompetent,
Yeah.
or perhaps you stayed in a job or a relationship longer than you should have
Oh, yeah.
because you didn't want to admit defeat.
It's so easy to fall into that trap.
It is.
Especially in a culture that often values appearances over authenticity. But acknowledging our own weaknesses
Yes.
is actually a sign of strength,
It is.
not weakness. But-
Absolutely.
Right.
Recognizing our blind spots is essential
Yeah.
for growth and improvement.
Totally.
And that brings us to another default,
Okay.
the social default.
Okay, tell me more about this one.
So think about all the times that you've gone along with the crowd,
Oh, yeah.
even when you had doubts.
Mm.
Maybe you agreed to a plan you weren't comfortable with,
Uh-huh.
or stayed silent when you should have spoken up.
Yeah.
That's the social default at play.
It's like we're hardwired to seek approval and avoid rocking the boat, even if it means compromising our own value
Yeah.
or goals.
Yeah. The book argues that this desire to fit in can actually prevent us from achieving truly exceptional results.
Interesting.
Yeah. It gives the example of, a team of ditch diggers.
Oh.
The one who stops to invent the shovel
Uh-huh.
is seen as an outsider at first, but ultimately, they're the one who revolutionizes the process.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
It really highlights how important it is to think for ourselves and challenge the status quo,
Yes.
even when it feels uncomfortable.
Absolutely. And sometimes that discomfort
Yeah.
comes from resistance to change itself.
Okay.
And that's where the inertia default comes in.
Ah, the comfort zone.
Yes.
It's so easy to get stuck there.
It is.
But sticking with the familiar can sometimes have serious consequences.
Absolutely.
Right.
The book uses the example of lead in gasoline.
Okay.
It was widely known to be harmful,
Right.
yet it took years to phase it out.
Wow.
Because of inertia.
Uh-huh.
People were resistant to change,
Yeah.
even though it was clearly needed.
So how do we break free from these defaults?
Yeah.
Do we have to become like emotionless robots
No,
to make better decisions?
not at all.
Okay.
No, the book emphasizes the importance of cultivating personal strength
Okay.
to help us counteract these defaults. when they inevitably arise.
Okay. I'm ready to take notes.
Okay.
Give me the rundown on these strengths.
Okay. So first and foremost is self-accountability.
Okay.
It's about taking ownership of our choices
Hmm.
and not blaming external factors for our failures.
Right.
Instead of making excuses, we focus on what we can control
Okay.
and take responsibility for the consequences of our actions.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's about moving from a victim mindset
Yes.
to a creator mindset.
Exactly.
I like that.
The next strength is self-knowledge.
Okay.
It's about understanding our own strengths,
Uh-huh.
weaknesses, and blind spots.
Right.
We need to be honest with ourselves
Yeah.
about our capabilities and limitations.
It's like that old saying,
What's that?
know thyself.
Yes.
But how do we gain that level of self-awareness?
It takes time and effort.
Yeah.
We need to be willing to reflect on our experiences, seek feedback from others,
Mm-hmm.
and be open to learning about ourselves.
Mm.
The book gives an example of a successful real estate investor
Okay.
who demonstrated self-knowledge by declining a tempting opportunity.
Interesting.
He knew that it fell outside of his area of expertise
Mm-hmm.
and wasn't afraid to walk away.
That's a great example of how self-knowledge can protect us from making
Yeah.
impulsive decisions.
Right.
So you've got self-accountability,
Yeah.
self-knowledge.
Yes.
What's the third strength?
The third strength is self-control.
Okay.
It's about mastering our emotions, desires, and fears so that they don't hijack our decision-making.
Right.
This doesn't mean suppressing our emotions,
Okay.
but rather learning to manage them effectively.
This feels like the most challenging one.
It can be.
Yeah, our emotions can be so powerful.
They are powerful, but the book offers a hopeful message.
Okay.
It tells a story about how the author helped a friend overcome his fear of jumping off a high rock.
Wow.
By focusing on his breathing, visualizing past successes, and taking small steps, the friend was able to master his fear and take the leap.
That's an inspiring example.
Yeah,
It reminds us that we have more control over our emotions than we often realize.
absolutely.
But building these strengths takes time and effort.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any, quick wins?
Yeah.
Any safeguards we can put in place to protect ourselves from these defaults,
Uh-huh.
especially in those high-pressure moments?
That's a great question, and luckily the book offers several practical safeguards.
Okay.
We'll dive into those right after a quick break.
Sounds good.
All right.
We'll be right back.
Okay.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Before the break, we were talking about all those sneaky mental defaults
Right.
that can sabotage our decisions.
Yeah.
And the personal strengths we can cultivate to, counteract them.
Absolutely.
But I'm really curious about those safeguards you mentioned.
Yeah.
What are some, practical strategies that we can implement to protect ourselves, especially when those defaults are, rearing their ugly heads?
Yeah, the book offers a variety of safeguards.
Okay.
And one that I find particularly helpful is this idea of creating rules.
Okay.
Think of it as establishing personal guidelines for those common situations where you know you're vulnerable
Okay.
to a specific default.
So, setting boundaries to protect ourselves
Yes.
from our own bad habits.
Exactly.
I like it.
Yeah. For example, let's say you tend to overspend when shopping online.
Yeah.
You could create a rule that you never buy anything over a certain amount without sleeping on it first.
Oh, that's good.
That way you give yourself time to cool off
Right.
and make a more rational decision.
That's a great example. It's like putting a speed bump
Yes.
in the path of our impulsive desires.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the book's author actually implemented a no meetings before lunch rule
Oh, wow.
to protect his most productive hours.
I'm definitely stealing that one.
Yeah.
Speaking of designing your environment,
Uh-huh.
the book also talks about increasing friction.
Yes.
What's that all about?
This safeguard plays on the idea that we're more likely to engage in behaviors that are easy and convenient.
Okay.
So by increasing the friction or the effort required,
Yeah.
we make it less likely that we'll give in to those unwanted impulses.
Well, it's like putting those tempting snacks
Yes.
on the highest shelf in the pantry,
Exactly.
where you have to work a little harder to reach them.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
The author shares this funny story about how he used his competitive nature to break an email addiction.
Okay.
He bet his colleagues that he wouldn't check his email before 11:00 a.m. each day.
Wow.
That little bit of friction, combined with his desire to win the bet,
Yeah.
helped him overcome that urge to constantly check his inbox.
I love that it's like using your own psychology against yourself.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes a little creative trickery can be just what we need to stay on track.
Absolutely.
What other safeguards are in our arsenal?
Another powerful technique is shifting perspective.
Okay.
It's about stepping outside of our own limited viewpoint.
And considering the situation from different angles,
Okay.
we can do this by actively seeking out diverse opinions,
Right.
playing devil's advocate with ourselves, or even just taking a break from the problem
Yeah.
and coming back to it with fresh eyes.
It's like that saying, can't see the forest for the trees.
Yes.
Sometimes we're so caught up in our own perspective that we miss crucial information.
The book tells this story of a CEO who used the question, "What did I miss?"
Huh.
as a regular part of his decision-making process.
Interesting.
This simple question helped him to uncover blind spots,
Yeah.
identify potential risks, and make more informed decisions.
That's such a valuable practice.
It is.
It's a reminder that we don't always have all the answers.
Right.
And that seeking out different perspectives
Yes.
can lead to better outcomes.
Absolutely.
These safeguards are great tools for helping us navigate the complexities of decision-making. But I'm also curious about the process itself.
Does the book offer any guidance on how to approach making those tough choices?
It does. It breaks down the decision-making process into several key stages,
Oh.
starting with defining the problem accurately.
Right.
This might seem obvious,
Yeah.
but we often jump to solutions
Uh-huh.
before we fully understand the root cause of the issue.
It's like treating the symptoms instead of the underlying disease.
Exactly. The book encourages us to ask ourselves, what would have to be true for this problem to no longer exist?
Okay.
This question helps us to move beyond those surface-level issues
Right.
and identify the underlying factors that are driving the problem.
I love that question.
Yeah.
It forces us to think more deeply and strategically about the situation.
Yes.
Does the book give any examples of how this plays out in the real world?
It does. It tells the story of a dog shelter that was struggling with overcrowding.
Okay.
Instead of focusing on finding more people to adopt dogs, they asked themselves that crucial question. What would have to be true for there to be fewer dogs to adopt in the first place?
I'm intrigued. What did they discover?
They realized that a significant percentage of dogs were being surrendered
Okay.
because their owners simply couldn't afford to feed them.
So the solution wasn't about finding more homes for the dogs,
Right.
but about addressing the issue of food insecurity among
Exactly.
pet owners.
By correctly identifying the root cause, they were able to implement a more effective solution, providing food assistance to low-income families,
Wow.
which ultimately reduced the number of dogs being surrendered to the shelter.
That's a powerful example of how taking the time to define the problem accurately can lead to more impactful and sustainable solutions.
It can.
But once we've identified the root cause,
Yeah.
how do we go about finding the best solution? I imagine there are usually multiple options to consider.
That's where the next stage comes in exploring solutions.
Okay.
And here the book encourages us to go beyond binary thinking. That tendency to limit ourselves to just two options.
Right. It's like that classic dilemma. Should I stay in my job or should I quit?
Exactly.
We often get stuck in that either mindset,
Yeah,
but there are usually more creative possibilities available.
absolutely. The book suggests a helpful exercise.
Okay.
Imagine the option that you're currently leaning towards is completely off the table.
Okay.
What would you do then?
Huh.
This thought experiment forces you to think outside the box
Right.
and consider alternatives you might not have otherwise seen.
I love that it's about challenging our assumptions and opening ourselves up to new possibilities.
Exactly.
Does the book give any other tips for generating creative solutions?
It talks about the power of integrative thinking.
Okay.
Instead of choosing between option A or option B, we look for ways to integrate the best aspects of both options into a new and innovative solution.
It's about finding a both-hand approach
Yes.
instead of getting stuck in an either dilemma.
Precisely. It's about looking for those win-win solutions that create value for everyone involved.
Okay.
For example, if you're feeling unfulfilled in your current job,
Yeah.
instead of simply quitting, maybe you could explore ways to integrate your passions into your existing role, or perhaps negotiate for more flexibility to pursue a side project.
That's a great example. It's about finding those creative workarounds that allow us to pursue our goals without making like drastic changes.
Right.
But let's be real, not all decisions are created equal.
Right.
Sometimes we have to make choices with limited information
Yeah.
and under tight deadlines. How do we navigate that uncertainty
Yeah.
and make the best choices possible when the stakes are high?
That's a crucial point, and in these situations, the book emphasizes the importance of understanding and managing opportunity costs.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that every decision we make comes with trade-offs. There's no such thing as a free lunch.
Right.
By choosing one path, we're inevitably closing the door on other possibilities.
It's like that feeling of FOMO, the fear of missing out.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in this case, it's not just about missing out on, like, a social event.
Right.
It's about the potential consequences
Yeah.
of choosing one path over another.
Exactly. The book suggests using a three-lens approach to assess opportunity costs.
Okay.
The first lens is compared to what?
Right.
This is the most straightforward comparison,
Okay.
where we weigh the pros and cons of different options.
Right.
For example, if you're buying a car, you might compare the features and the fuel efficiency of various models.
That's the typical comparison shopping we all do.
Right. But there are two other lenses that are equally important.
Okay.
The second lens is, and then what?
All right.
This encourages us to think about the long-term consequences of our choices.
Okay.
So if you buy a cheaper car, will it require more maintenance down the road?
Right.
If you take on a new project at work, how will it impact your work-life balance?
So it's about considering the ripple effects of our decisions.
Yes.
And anticipating those unintended consequences that might arise.
Exactly. And the third lens is, at the expense of what? This prompts us to think about what we're sacrificing by choosing one option over another.
Right.
If you spend your weekends working on that side hustle, are you giving up valuable time with family and friends?
Right.
If you decide to move to a new city for a job opportunity, are you leaving behind a strong support network?
It's about acknowledging that our time and energy are finite resources, and that we need to make conscious choices about how we allocate them.
Exactly. By using these three lenses, we can gain a more comprehensive understanding of the true costs and benefits of our decisions, even when we're facing uncertainty.
Makes sense.
And speaking of uncertainty, when those high-stakes decisions come along, where the potential consequences are significant and perhaps even irreversible, the book introduces this crucial concept, margin of safety.
Margin of safety. That sounds like something an engineer would use when designing a bridge.
And the same principle applies to decision-making. It's about building in a buffer to protect yourself from unexpected events and potential downsides.
So it's like having a backup plan or a financial cushion in case things don't go as planned.
Exactly. It's about acknowledging that we can't predict the future with 100% certainty, and that things can and do go wrong. By building in a margin of safety, we're better equipped to handle those unexpected challenges and emerge from setbacks stronger than before.
Do you have an example of how this might apply to, like, a real-world decision?
Certainly imagine you're considering investing in a new business venture. Instead of putting all your eggs in one basket, you might diversify your investments, ensuring that you have a safety net in case one investment doesn't pan out as expected. Or if you're planning a major life change, like moving to a new city, you might build in a financial buffer to cover unexpected expenses or maintain a network of contacts in your previous city as a fallback option.
Those are great examples. It's about anticipating those what-if scenarios. And having a plan in place to mitigate the potential risks.
Exactly.
I'm starting to see how all of these pieces fit together. We've defined the problem, explored solutions, considered opportunity costs, and built in a margin of safety. But at some point, we have to actually pull the trigger and make the decision. How do we know when it's time to stop deliberating and take action?
That's a great question.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've been unpacking a ton of valuable insights from clearthinking.pdf on how to make better decisions. We've talked about identifying those sneaky mental defaults, building those key personal strengths, and implementing safeguards to protect ourselves in those high-pressure moments. We even dove into a framework for navigating tough choices with a margin of safety. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious about the book's perspective on the bigger picture. Does it offer any guidance on what it means to live a truly successful and fulfilling life?
Absolutely. And this is where the book goes beyond just making sound decisions and delves into the heart of what it means to live a life of meaning and purpose. Interestingly, it challenges us to rethink our conventional notions of success, those often touted external markers like wealth, status, and achievement.
So it's not just about climbing that corporate ladder or acquiring material possession. There's got to be more to it than that, right?
Exactly. The book argues that true success is about aligning our actions with our values, cultivating meaningful relationships, and finding joy in the everyday moments. It's about living a life of integrity and purpose, one that is both personally fulfilling and contributes to something larger than ourselves.
I'm reminded of that classic story of Ebenezer Scrooge, a character who had achieved immense wealth and worldly success, but was utterly miserable. He was isolated, bitter, and full of regret for the choices he'd made, choices that prioritized profit over people.
Scrooge is a powerful example of how chasing after external markers of success at the expense of our relationships and values can lead to a hollow existence. It's a cautionary tale that reminds us to prioritize what truly matters: our connections with others, our contributions to the world, and the pursuit of a life that is aligned with our deepest values.
I love that. It's about finding that deeper sense of meaning and purpose that transcends those fleeting external rewards. But how do we actually do that? How do we move from a life of chasing achievements to a life of genuine fulfillment?
The book offers a few compelling ideas. One that stood out to me is the concept of savoring life's simple pleasures, those often overlooked moments of joy and connection that we tend to take for granted in our pursuit of bigger and better things.
It's about appreciating the beauty in the ordinary, the warmth of a genuine conversation, the laughter shared with loved ones, and the satisfaction of engaging in work that is both meaningful and challenging. It's about finding those moments of gratitude amidst the chaos of daily life.
Exactly. And to help us gain clarity on what truly matters and what deserves our precious time and energy, the book introduces a rather profound concept: memento mori.
Memento mori. I've heard that phrase before, but honestly, I'm not sure I fully grasp its meaning.
It's Latin for remember that you will die. Now, before you think this is getting too morbid, the book suggests using the contemplation of death not in a fearful way, but as a powerful tool for focusing our attention on what is truly important in life.
It's like that saying, life is too short to fill in the blank with whatever is draining your energy or preventing you from pursuing your dreams.
Exactly. By acknowledging our mortality, we gain a fresh perspective on our priorities, realizing that our time is precious and that we have a limited amount of it to make a difference. It encourages us to let go of trivial worries, make amends with loved ones, and pursue those dreams and passions that we've been putting off.
It's about living each day with intention, making the most of our time, and leaving a positive impact on the world.
The book shares the example of Steve Jobs, who famously asked himself every morning, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I'm about to do today? This simple question helped him stay focused on his passions, make choices that were aligned with his values, and avoid wasting time on things that didn't truly matter.
That's such a powerful question to ask yourself. It can really help to cut through the noise and distractions and get to the heart of what matters most.
Yeah.
I think we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We've explored the hidden forces that influence our decisions, the power of cultivating personal strengths, and the importance of aligning our actions with our values to create a life of meaning and purpose.
Clearthinking.pdf offers a wealth of practical tools and insights for navigating the complexities of life and making choices that lead to greater clarity, fulfillment, and impact. It's a reminder that we have more agency than we often realize, and that by making conscious choices, we can shape our own destinies.
I couldn't agree more. This has been an eye-opening journey, and I encourage everyone listening to take some time to reflect on the key takeaways from this deep dive and consider how you might apply these principles to your own life.
And remember, the journey to clear thinking and intentional living is an ongoing one. It's about cultivating those personal strengths, implementing safeguards, and continually striving to make choices that are aligned with our values and aspirations. It's about showing up for ourselves and for the world in a way that is both authentic and impactful.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into clear thinking and intentional living. Until next time, keep those minds sharp and those hearts open.